Ohio State defeats Texas 14-7 in week one. The biggest game in week one we've probably had in the history of college football. Highly anticipated. Number 1 versus number 3 in the shoe. We had Lee Corso's last headgear pick. Arch Manning, Julian Sayin. Loads of headlines. Very defensive game. If you're someone that loves defenses, you definitely love this game. Matt Patricia puts on a clinic. Steve Sarkisian stumbles, and his offense cannot get anything rolling. So let's react to this. Let's start with the obvious elephant in the room, and that's Arch Manning. Okay? A lot of people are already talking about he's a bust, he's not good, he's terrible, awful performance. Let's start with reality. The reality is Arch did not play a great game. All right, 17 for 30. He had a touchdown. He also threw a pick. Looked rattled. Some very inaccurate throws, some interesting decisions. Now, he didn't have a lot of time in this game. I did not care for Sarks' game plan for him. It almost felt like he was handcuffed. I don't know if Caleb Downs scared them or Matt Patricia truly just bubbled them up that bad. Nonetheless, though, the reality is it wasn't a great performance. But the thing I want to say about Arch is when you talk about expectations, my expectations of Arch are he's going to be good. But when you start throwing around generational talent and the next Heisman Trophy winner and all of these things that the media continually pushes on him, you're of course going to be disappointed and upset and overreacting to this stat line and this performance, whether it's in the box score or raw tape, watching him play. For me, look, I've always thought Arch was good. I've done a film review on Arch's highlights and film from last year, and there's definitely intangibles that are going to be successful for him. All the tools are there, without a doubt. He's a good quarterback. He has a good arm. He's smart. He's an athletic guy. He can run. But I never looked at him as a generational talent. I did not think that Arch was going to win the Heisman this year or just throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns every single game, let alone against an Ohio State defense that has the best safety in college football, a very good defensive line, and is coached by Matt Patricia, a guy with how much NFL experience. So I'm not on the overreaction train. I think Arch will be fine. Sark will start to ease him into this offense, maybe open it up a little more for him, hopefully, and he's going to be okay. Now, as an offensive whole for Texas in this game, I mean, fourth downs are really what killed them. 1 for 5 on fourth downs. It felt like every time they moved the ball, which they did, 166 yards on the ground. So the run game was there. I wish Wisner would have been utilized more out of the backfield. But as we mentioned in my prediction and preview video, Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, those 2 Ohio State linebackers were just all over the field, filling the run gaps. In coverage, they were locked down. Nothing was getting across them. Nothing was getting past them. The secondary played great. Caleb Downs was all over the field. It felt like Sark was in denial of throwing it anywhere near Caleb Downs or just letting Arch create plays, nor did he really have the time to do so. That Texas offensive line, at least in pass pro, was not communicating well. They couldn't figure it out. But the run game was there. It was fourth downs that just killed Texas. Some of the play calls, some of the things were just a bit head scratchers. Again, Wisner ran the ball for 80 yards on 16 carries, so a productive day on the ground. But in terms of passing, 170 yards passing, so they still outgained Ohio State, but 1 turnover, so they lose the turnover battle. They lose the time of possession battle. And the offense just never really found any kind of rhythm. That's the thing. When Sark gets his offense going, whether it's the screen game, RPO game, those are really the 2 big things he loves to do. None of them came to fruition. It just felt like Texas threw everything out the window. We're just going to play power smash football, zone reads. That game plan just isn't going to consistently work against Ohio State. You're not going to be able to sustain that all game long. And even if they tried to air it out, Ryan Wingo couldn't breathe. It felt like he couldn't get much separation. Anyone outside of him really wasn't able to get much separation. So there just hardly was anywhere for Arch to throw the ball and hardly any time to do so. So again, I did not care for the game plan, but let's flip over to Ohio State, the team that won, and a positive outlook is Matt Patricia. What a game plan. I mean, he just shut Sark's offense down completely, made Arch Manning look lost. He made the inexperience come out and show itself. It reared its ugly head pretty darn early. Props to the 12th man in the shoe, that crowd, the atmosphere, it was loud. Couple of false starts. I mean, 6 penalties for 50 yards for Texas. Not terrible. It's week 1 on the road. You kind of expect that, but Matt Patricia just caused nightmares for that offense. And again, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, those 2 guys played incredible all around the field, all over the place, making plays all day long. On the offensive side of the ball, we mentioned in that preview and prediction video as well that either Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis, they're going to have to step up and make a play. There's probably going to be room for them to do so. And Texas absolutely bracketed Jeremiah Smith. They had safety help over him. They made sure that there were 2 sets of eyes, at minimum 2 sets of eyes, on Smith all day long. Now, he still had catches, a couple of drops early in that game out of Jeremiah Smith, a little bit unexpected for him, but obviously Carnell Tate, only 2 catches, but 49 yards. He has that big touchdown that essentially wins them the game. That's what they needed. Incredible catch. He beats him deep. Wasn't the best throw out of Julian Sayin, but it was there. And Carnell Tate makes an incredible catch, like a double doink on his hands, comes down with it. They get the touchdown. I was impressed by Julian Sayin. 13 for 21 touchdown, no massive mistakes. He did what he needed to do. Ohio State only ran the ball for 89 yards, so not a lot of production. Donaldson had 19 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't the most dominant performance on the ground, but Ohio State came into this game knowing, hey, we're going to lean on our defense, force maybe 1 or 2 turnovers. They got 1. And play a field position game, try to punch it in. If it's low scoring and we have to win that way, that's how we're going to win. And they were the more physical team. They get it done at home. Great start for them, man. Playing with house money. You could sense Ryan Day's body language was just so much more loose. And that's fun to see for him. I think this team's going to be really good again. I think the offense with Julian Sayin will start to get a little bit more comfortable, a little more consistency. They'll figure out, Brian Hartline specifically, right? He's going to figure out more ways to scheme open Jeremiah Smith because we know he's going to see double teams nearly all year long. There's always going to be a safety over him. That allows Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis to have big games. The running game will start to find its rhythm. That offensive line didn't play bad. In pass pro, I thought they did all right. Run game-wise, some of the schemes and the concepts weren't terrible, but the blocking wasn't the best. Now, Texas's defensive line is very physical. They're a very good defensive line. So, look, both teams in the trenches, I would say, matched up pretty darn evenly. Both offensive lines weren't extremely impressive. Both defensive lines were probably the highlight of the game. But it just comes down to 1 or 2 big plays. And Ohio State made those 1 or 2 big plays, 1 or 2 more than Texas was able to do. That's why they get the win. I'm not off the rails on Arch Manning quite yet. I think there's a lot of bright future and bright moments ahead for him. Julian Sayin, I think he's only going to get better. I loved how comfortable he looked. I think Hartline in that receiving room will kind of gather Julian Sayin, and he's going to flourish this year. And I'm excited to see what the Buckeyes do the rest of the way through. So that's all I got, friends. Appreciate you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.